Good or bad? Story 1. I have really bad social anxiety and generally suffer from panic attacks. We met in a grocery store parking lot, got some snacks and drinks, and just hung out in the bed of my truck. We are in our 40s. This was what she wanted to do on our first meeting, and I was completely okay with that. She could tell I was nervous and getting a little anxious, so she held on to me and talked a lot to get my mind off it. Eventually, it all went away. Her kindness and understanding were amazing, and I haven't left her side. Our relationship is fantastic. Story 2. When we met for our date, she said two things. 1. If she knew I was disabled, she would not have agreed to go out on a date with me. I should not have been born because the world needs fewer problems. I should note that I put on my dating profile that I am partially disabled. I guess in addition to being a horrible human being, she must also be illiterate. The date lasted about a minute or less. She said those things and walked out on me. Story 3. We were walking around a botanical garden, each talking about our hobbies. I mentioned a pizza recipe that I had been experimenting with. She stopped me and said, "That sounds incredible. I have to try it," with such joy on her face. Then she looked me deep in the eyes and said, "I really want to kiss you right now." It was such a simple validation of my interests and a simple moment of making me feel desired. Unfortunately, she set the bar for truly caring, which very few have even come close to reaching, let alone surpassing. Story 4. She brought me a bottle of fresh cow's milk. She was very proud of her animals and really wanted to share that. Story 5. In the very early days of the internet, I met a girl from an online dating site and we went out for a few drinks. I lived in what was pretty much the cool part of town where all the best clubs and bars were, so I ended up walking to our meetup. When we left the last bar, she asked if I wanted a ride back to my place, and I said yes. When we got there, I realized that I probably wasn't exactly her type even though we had a really good time. She was more of a button-down professional type, and at the time I was still in college and more of a goth punk type living with my friend. Our band was still doing well enough to play gigs every month. Before I got out of her car, I just said what I was thinking. I had a really nice time, and even if we never see each other again, I'll probably never forget this date because you're the prettiest girl I've ever been out with. I think she realized I was being completely sincere, so she leaned over, gave me a really long kiss, and asked to come in. We ended up spending the night together at my place, and when she left in the morning, we never saw each other again. Story 6. My friend lied and said I was a marine biologist when he set me up with this girl. We went to the beach and saw a beached whale that appeared to be dying. Someone yelled, "Can anyone help this whale?" And my date yelled, "Yes, he's a marine biologist." A large crowd gathered, and I had no idea what to do. Then I noticed something white in the blowhole. I reached in, pulled it out, and it was a golf ball. The whale started breathing again and went back into the sea. The crowd of 100 people broke out in applause. The girl and I both had tears streaming down our faces, and we started kissing. After that, I confessed I wasn't really a marine biologist. She said she knew because I didn't know a whale was a mammal. Story 7. Had a young and upcoming opera singer who gave up her old life to pursue the dream of becoming a singer sing an aria inside a small tunnel for me on the first date, which was quite an unforgettable experience. Story 8. I went and picked her up. When she opened the door, she was wearing a robe. She grabbed my hand and said we should have sex first because if I was really going to take her to eat a steak, she would be too full to do anything afterward. We had great sex and ate a delicious steak. Story 9. When my date, who is also my wife of many decades, was sitting next to me on the bus ride back to her apartment, she touched my leg with her hand. It was electric, and I can almost feel it even to this day. Story 10. She got in a car accident on the way to meet me for our date. She called me while the police were there, and I said, "Don't worry, I'll wait." I thought she was just trying to cancel, but she showed up. She was very cool, had her own place with her twin daughters, a good job, was a cheerleader at the University of Southern California, and graduated from there. The date was great. We hung out at her place afterward to watch a music awards show and went to a concert a few weeks later. I'm not sure why, but I regret not pursuing her more seriously. Story 11. At this point, I just want to get pregnant and have a baby. I do not even care who the father is. Like 20 minutes in. Story 12. I'm a huge nerd. I like some fantasy shows, books, and video games, but it is not the only thing that I talk about. I made a vague reference to something from The Witcher for my own amusement that I assumed would go over her head. She responded with a word-for-word quote from a dwarf character in The Witcher 3 using the dwarven accent. I immediately knew that I was sold. Unfortunately, although the date went very well, I blew it by being too overeager to see her again. This was probably about a year ago. I have dated other women since then, but the thought of her still haunts me from time to time. I hope she is doing well and has found somebody who appreciates her dorkiness. Story 13. She gave me a beautiful bouquet of flowers and frozen Brussels sprouts. We are having our third date this Wednesday. Story 14. A girl took me to her grandmother's birthday party. When I say party, there was just her grandmother, her parents, some other assorted elderly people, and a buffet complete with hedgehog cheese and pineapple decorations. As first dates go, that was interesting. Story 15. My best friend went down on this girl after their first date when they ended up back at his apartment. Afterward, he found a piece of feces on the couch where it happened. He had no pets. He took her home and never took her out again. Story 16. It was me who did it. I lost my virginity in the back seat of a car, and after I was done, I said Shazam in Tyrone Bigham's voice. I'm sure she will never forget that. Story 17. She brought her female friend, and they talked to each other. I called one of my friends as well, and long story short, we were all together. Story 18. Intimacy within 15 minutes and receiving deep throat later in the evening. With the latter perfect lady, I only understood later what she meant when she said, right before kissing, I want to taste you. No questionaires, cenários, ambições, etc. Those are the best ones. Story 19. My roommate and I had a double first date. They came to our house first. We showed them our house, which was huge and somewhat dark, mostly empty. They were on their way to being wary of us. We rode with them because my roommate and I only had old trucks, and they wanted to stick together. Cool, we all warmed up, and toward the end of the evening, we were just cruising the mall, which was popular back in 1989 to 1990, when they asked us where we worked. At the time, we were going to technical school and working at my roommate's family cemetery. We mowed and trimmed, worked with the flowers, and ran the crematorium. They heard crematorium and wanted to see it. It was probably 11 p.m., first date, and things were okay until we walked into the crematorium, where there were about 5 or 6 boxes waiting. They said, "Oh no, get us out of here." They took us back to our house, threw us out in the alley, and left quickly. We chalked that up to their loss. Story 20. When we met up, she insisted on driving because, I guarantee you're a worse driver than I am. Her driving was extremely aggressive, tailgating about 6 inches from other cars' bumpers, cutting people off with less than a foot to spare, and displaying aggressive behavior in almost every other way. I do not even remember where we went because her driving was that bad. Needless to say, there was no second date. Story 21. She picked the day, time, and location. Saturday evening, around 6 or 7 p.m., at a Red Robin a few miles from her house. We met, got seated, ordered our drinks, and when the waitress came back to take our food order, she told me to go first. I ordered the burger I wanted, only to hear, "Oh, I'm not hungry. I'm not going to get anything." What? Do you have any idea how uncomfortable it is to sit on a first date, eating a meal while the woman across the table just sips her soda? There was no second date. There were multiple reasons, but this was one of them. Story 22. My first date was so mind-blowing that all other partners since felt vanilla by comparison. I had a crush on this girl and asked her out for a movie. She agreed. I only knew her through friends and had never spent any time with her in person before that, so I wasn't expecting much besides sitting close together. But she had other ideas. We took our seats, and 5 minutes after the movie started, she casually pulled my face over and kissed me on the lips. I was so shocked. I just let her lead. In no time, her tongue was exploring the inside of my mouth. It was my first time tasting someone else's saliva. Felt so hot. We had our jackets over our laps, and shortly after, I felt her hands moving underneath to unzip my pants. She didn't ask or say anything. She just went for it. I wasn't going to turn her away. Soon, she was inside my underwear, fondling me. Naturally, I got hard. She stopped kissing and gave me a wink. I am uncut, and somehow she got one finger inside my foreskin to play with my penis head. It was quite sensitive, yet I didn't want her to stop. I had to control myself not to make any sounds. I worked up the courage to unzip her pants as well, slid my hand inside her underwear, and fingered her in return. Similarly, she just let me do whatever I wanted. I groped her breasts next. We both tired out after a while and cuddled for the rest of the show. It was a weekday morning, and the cinema hall was virtually empty, with only 2 or 3 other patrons far ahead. She picked our seats right at the back in the dark corner. With our jackets draped over our fronts, nobody knew we were fooling around underneath. 25 years later, that first date is still seared in my mind. Nobody else has managed to top it. Story 23. Good. I went to the bathroom and came back to see her FaceTiming her friend. She was criticizing me, so I was confused. Apparently, her friend had been speaking badly about me despite not knowing me, and the girl I was dating told her to stop. I stood there for a minute until she hung up. It was very nice to see someone actually standing up for me for once instead of criticizing me to fit in. Bad. She outright told me, if you were in a room with 10 guys, I'd probably pick 8 or 9 of them before you, but you're doing something with your life, so that's why I'm here. Story 24. Good. Taught her how to ride a bike. A lifelong skill. Bad. We were at a restaurant when her ex-husband came in. She stood up, yelling, gave the waiter my credit card, and said she would be back shortly. She asked me, what was that about? As if I was the crazy one. I got her an Uber. Story 25. I dated a really cute Hispanic girl and took her to the drive-in movies. The movie The Wild Bunch was playing, the one where they try to kill every Mexican in sight. It was pretty awkward for a while, but she forgave me later since neither of us knew the plot of the film beforehand. She even kissed me goodnight. Story 26. I went out with a Match.com date after chatting for a few hours. We met the next day and spent time together. She stayed at my place. When I took her home in the morning, she asked if I was okay with being a father to her 2 children and the new baby due in 5 months. Story 27. It was a hot summer day. She said, I am sweaty. She stuck her hand in her shorts, pulled it out, smelled it and said, my psychology does not smell that bad though. I am pretty sure she may have forgotten her medication that day. Story 28. I was 15. We arranged to meet at the cinema to watch a terrible girls' film, Bridget Jones's Diary. She arrived with 2 friends, and they were all very drunk. Half an hour passed and she felt ill. I took her to the toilet, and then she came out and threw up all over my new trainers. I had bought them that day because my old trainers were worn out. Somehow, she got orange chunks under my laces, inside my shoe, and everywhere. Story 29. Not me, but some guy took his date to a grocery store to eat on the first date. Not even fast food, but like gas station sushi for a first date. The girl looked like she was going to break down in tears. My only thought was, guys like this can find a nice girl like that, and all I can find are shallow ones. Story 30. She got very drunk at the open bar and made a fool of herself. She tried to apologize the next day, saying she believed she had been drugged. Story 31. Ashley picked up the check because she had a government job. What's-her-face said her hobby was spending money after she scoffed and told me that I was probably too into Japanese things. But I am learning to speak Spanish. My love is the Spanish language. Story 32. My ironically loving wife got emotionally overwhelmed when I teased her on our first date after she stumbled on an uneven piece of pavement. She punched me in the arm so hard it gave me a dead arm. I instantly fell in love with her. Story 33. She paid for both of us and almost unknowingly walked me back to my friend's home where I was staying. Story 34. When we went to kiss goodnight, her mouth opened wide like a predator and tried to engulf my entire face. It was very strange. Story 35. My wife of 18 years. On our first date, I invited her over for a home-cooked dinner. At one point, she was sitting on the couch, and we were just chatting when the topic of her tattoos came up. She has a tattoo on the top of her foot, so she took her shoe off to show me. She also rolled her ankle and wiggled her toes. I remember thinking that was the first time I realized how attractive her feet are. Story 36. She invited me inside and begged me to be with her. I declined but stayed and cuddled until she fell asleep. We stayed in contact and saw each other a few times after the initial meeting but never even kissed again. It was a very strange experience, and it actually had me feeling unsettled for a few weeks. Story 37. My friends were setting me up with this girl, and we all went out for drinks. It was not exactly a first date, but it basically was. We all got pretty tipsy, and the night turned into after-party hours. The girl I was getting set up with was cozying up to me at the bar. She dug into her purse, pulled out a can of sardines, opened it, and started eating them right out of the can. That was a major turnoff. Story 38. In college, I was throwing a house party and invited her to come over for our first date. She got intoxicated, drank too much, and vomited in and around the sink. Story 39. She lied about herself and did not eat when we went out to dinner. She wanted sex afterward, but I declined. Then she stopped responding, which was for the better. Story 40. She told me she liked that I had a plan for what I wanted to do with my life, but that it was not etched in stone. The last handful of men I dated were clueless about what they wanted to do in life. Not you. Story 41. He asked me to rate every woman who walked past us on a scale of 1 to 10. When I refused, he started doing it anyway, really loudly. The embarrassment still haunts me 5 years later. Story 42. I dated a couple of Instagram models, which was fun because it showed how normal they are. The first one dropped her fork and was really embarrassed, which I thought was cute. Her outfit was also very nice. The second one was challenging, not just her but the whole day. I was going to pick her up from the airport, and while entering directions in my global positioning system, a random man who I think was still drunk from the night before opened my passenger side door to ask if his phone was in my car. I told him, "I don't even know you. Why would your phone be in my car?" After that, I told her to message me when her flight left. She didn't, so I was at the airport when her flight was supposed to have landed, with no word. Luckily, English Premier League games were on at the time, so I watched the full 90-minute game with still no message. I thought I was made a fool of. Then I got a call and she said she had landed. I picked her up, took her to brunch, and everything was fine. That day felt like a waste, and I was ready to tell my friends to get a good roasting session out of it. Another woman I took out on the first date offered to split the bill. I declined but appreciated the offer. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.